Okay, so we're kind of back here from North Idaho, Ted and I on split screen. Ted's tired of me coughing on him in the chair, so we decided with a little help from the younger generation that we could go on this split screen thing here and try to talk to you guys. So got a viewer ask a bunch of questions, unbeknown to us because we can't see him writing, and I sent those questions to Ted, and Ted did his dissertation of this hypothetical fix. So you got it, Ted?
Yeah, so this is to Shred Ahead Snowboarding. Hi, I'm 155 pounds, 5'6", 156 mag 1. So that's the board he's riding in an intermediate. Seems like this board is too long and too fast to try first 180 side hits. Can control speed on groomers, but not in tight areas unless I'm going kind of fast. Think boots are too soft. What do you recommend beyond that for an older dude? I mean, my heel has 2 chairs and is icy pack. Right, there we go. I think I'm not progressing for justified fear of trying any new stuff at mid speeds when I snowboard at slow speeds. I'm thinking I should have bought something 155 centimeters. You go first? Yeah?
Yeah,
And
go
then,
ahead and tell him what your rundown was on that.
so when he says, it seems like this board is too long and too fast to try first 180 side hits. And I asked the question, have you worked on the 180 on flat ground? And then he says, can control speed on groomers, but not in tight areas unless I'm going kind of fast. My answer to that is, this tells me your speed control is based on your momentum rather than the body alignment. Then his next thing is, think boots are too soft. And my answer to that, you have presented this as an algorithm with very difficult random information to consider. If a boot were unlaced, that by itself could sabotage the entire process. So I didn't really answer that question, just said that there was too many things to think about. What do you recommend beyond that for older dude? Both Jim and I are there. I mean, my heel has 2 chairs and is icy pack. Okay, I learned back east, so I know what that's about. And then he says, I think I'm not progressing for justified fear of any new stuff at mid speeds. When I snowboard at slow speeds, I'm thinking I should have bought something 151 centimeters. So my first was answered to try to fix this without having seen it, knowing what's going on, really just sort of guessing. 1, go to flat ground, do nose 180s, regular and goofy, both to feel the alignment, weight shift, and sequence of muscle movement. 2, on the bunny hill, repeat the above, and then do it across the fall line, very slow speed. 3, on the bunny hill, repeat above and more in the fall line, so he's going downhill with a little more speed, it's less slow. And 4, a bit more on terrain slope, and repeat those steps. And the last one I wrote down, this is a bit more complicated. Take a piece of paper, draw S's or C's as if it were the track of your board. Take the paper and roll it so the track is as if it were a half pipe. You can see you're making the same turn regardless of whether you're on groomers. But if you're depending on your groomer ride, and depending on the momentum in that style, it sounds as if the weight might be a little too far back. So how the weight is distributed on the flat 180 is how the weight will be transitioned for a side hit. And that was my take, okay?
That's Ted's rundown of a student asking questions. Doesn't actually get to see the student. Makes it pretty difficult because we normally with a student would start asking a lot of questions. and Ted can agree to that, I'm sure. And then we would have the actual movement analysis, what the body is doing. So I took,
Yeah, big help.
yeah, big help. So I took the general questions that Ted went through, and I replied back to the same thing. I don't think that the board is necessarily too long, but it could be shorter, as the viewer suggested. You also mentioned that you had problems with speed and speed control. So my questions to the viewer or any group of viewers out there is, how do you control speed? Do you control speed with a braking type movement that you push down at the end of the turn and put the brakes on and then you reset and go again? That would be one way of doing it. Do you control speed by traversing across the hill a long way before you make a cut back? And stuff, if this is your style of turn, then everything's jammed at the corners, just like my hand, and it's quick and rapid, boom, boom. So that could create some problems. Do you do open turns or closed turns? And that goes back to what Ted said about the S turns, which are basically closed turns, and the open turns, which are a little bit more in line with the fall line and don't cross it a lot. That has the capability of gaining speed in narrow spots. So what am I going to do on narrow spots? What I think about on a narrow spot is I think about being on the highway and looking at a 2-lane road going down with a yellow strip down the middle that allows me to pass on either side. So I start a turn on one side as I reach the yellow line, and I go through my turn cycle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hit the yellow line and I go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, returning to the yellow line, and I restart. So everything is outside, starting, outside, starting, outside. And that would help you with rhythm and speed control in narrow places. So you have to have a plan. You can't just stand there and let it ride. So anyhow, that's one fix for that. I don't think your boots being too soft are an issue, because once you strap them up with your ankle strap, you are what you are. You've got the high back, you're in it. Now, where you could have a problem with a boot, maybe a little too stiff, because a stiff boot would cut down on your ankle flex. Your ankle could not open and close. Therefore, you'd be locked in and you'd have to do more with your knees and your hips, and you might not feel it as effectively. So I don't think that's a real problem. It also sounds to me like you could spend a little bit more time on what we call range of motion. And the range of motion we are most interested in is to the nose of the board and to the tail of the board. So I start at the nose, I end up centered, I go aft, I return 4. You can see even with my hand, I'm moving 4 and aft right here. That movement is required to start a turn. I end up in the middle, I end up aft, I must return 4. That same move, if you think about it, that was a weight transfer. Although with my hand, it was at the top, and on the board, you're going to make it with the lower body moving back and forth, more like this. So that range of motion needs to be played with. What we would say to you overall is get out of your comfort box, find some place that you can experiment. Go out with the board way in front of you. Go out with the board way behind you. Learn to move the board underneath the body while staying in line and starting and finishing turns. Basically, this is what we're saying. These drills could help you. Everything that Ted said, go back and practice it, just like he said, and then come back to us and let us know how it works. Although this was for one particular viewer, we won't give you the name. He knows who it is, and he'll appreciate it. There's a lot of you out there, we don't even have your name. You didn't ask. But this information that we put out today could be quite helpful to you. On the other side, I'm going to ask Ted a question. Everything that we talked about today, Ted, are you still working on that? And he laughed. Oh, yeah.
No, I'm going to buy another board.
I'll go buy another board. Don't fix everything, right? So if the board doesn't work, it's got
Get
nothing
another
to do
board.
with what we're doing, right?
No, get another board.
It's the board's fault, right?
It's the board's problem.
It's like the kid that falls down in the park and it's his mother's fault because she was watching, right?
Yeah, right.
So
The GoPro isn't hooked up right.
I'll always fix it. So we hope you guys like this. We hope there'll be more people out there who will ask us some questions. I think we enjoyed what we just did. It was pretty cool. Ted and I don't have the technology for this stuff at all. They're getting help from the background.
Really?
We are the boomers. We are the old guys. The other thing I want to shout out back to Avron. I want to thank Avron for the stickers that he sent from Colorado to us. And so there'll be a little sticker package coming from North Idaho Shred Ahead to Avron. Like, subscribe, hit the button, comment. We're
All
out.
right. Cheers.
Nice talking to you. Not on the chair, but it worked.